Check out the court. So you need to look for trees and shade patterns, court surface anomalies. What does the sun look like? Certain times of day. Lots of trees. You're surrounded by buildings. So what's the wind pattern going to be like? How close is the court to each other? What's the background going to be like? How's that going to affect play? Where the seats are located in relation to the court. Like those chairs are too close to the baseline. They should be more in the middle. Okay. In the back, you have some flowers, stuff like that. You have these little signs too, right? They're not really distracting, not in play. Okay. But over here, you have water, and you have the little chairs. So do your visual walkthrough. Notice the awning over there. Okay. Entry points. And these are the little things you need to do when you play tennis. Playing makes a big difference too. You gotta play as much as possible. It's been a while, but we're in my professor of tennis mode. Hawaii Tennis Pro talking to you about how to play at different tennis courts. And it's interesting because my friend and I were talking about basketball and how when you go to an away game, how the role players have a hard time playing. And so I thought about tennis, and I said, well, in tennis, when we go to a different site, things are different. And he asked me, well, how do you play at a different place? And I never thought about it, when you go to a tournament or a place you haven't played at before, there are certain things you need to do, and I want to outline the different things. You're going to have to worry about three things: vision, weather, and any court deficiencies. These are three critical areas to really explore when you're going to play at a different facility. What do I mean by vision? When you walk the courts, the best way to get used to another court is to play on the court. But if the facility has like 9 courts, you can't play on 9 courts. But generally you want to play on one court, get used to the speed of ball on the court. But sometimes you can't play until you get on the court. So if you can't play before you get on the court, the first thing you want to do is you want to walk the courts. And you want to try to see, what does the sunlight look like on the court? Are there any signs behind the court that will interfere with vision? For example, my facility has a yellow sign. It's the stupidest thing ever. It's in the corner. I can't see the ball very well when it hits that yellow sign during the day. At night, it's not noticeable, but during the day, this yellow corner is a problem. So are there odd signs to the court? Please note odd signs behind the court, behind the baseline when you're playing. If it's in the corner, it'll affect you when you're a returning serve or you're at net trying to poach. Look for any light or reflections. For example, when I used to play at the British Club, on the second floor of the cafe behind the court, there's a white awning. When the ball used to hit that white awning, you would lose the ball. Those are things that normally happen when you play, but you have to go out and see it. Indoor courts in the Midwest, a fan spinning on the roof. A spinning fan on the roof is a problem because it catches your eye when you go for overhead. So for the first 2 months at my facility in Michigan, East Lansing Court 1, I couldn't hit an overhead because I would lose the ball in the roof, one, and I was trying to figure out, why am I losing the ball? It's a different color. The roof was colored appropriately. It was the fan. Whenever the ball went up, I would see a fan spin, and for a split second, I look up and I see that fan. I'm like, oh, but it took me a while to figure out what was wrong. And when you're also playing on court, are there trees behind the court? Trees create two things: a swaying motion and a changing of the light pattern. Trees create leaves later on in the season, and trees change color. So you have to be aware of these things. Netting is also an issue. Like when we play at this indoor court, they have a net that separates the two courts. And so whenever I come out, I put my bag on the net and I push the net as far away from the court as possible because I don't want the net to interfere with my playing. Are there any court obstacles? Is a bench too close to the court? Is there something by the baseline, by the entranceway? These are things that are easily scouted out by vision when you just walk the courts. So make sure you walk the courts, try to be on the both sides of the court to see any problems with the sun. Wind patterns. This is the second thing, the weather. When the sun changes, like I play the indoor court in the morning, the sun comes in at an angle. It's really hard to see. In the afternoon, the court's on the other side, the sun comes in at an angle. It's really hard to see. Is there a wind pattern? Sometimes there's no wind. I play that indoor court, no wind. Like playing in a box. I could drop a leaf. I want to die. That court later on, they put fans. So the fans were a good thing. Um, does the wind swirl or go left to right? It's very funny about wind. Normally, if a court has a specific wind pattern, it stays that way. Bangkok Patna, the wind swirls, or there's no wind. I don't know what's better. So now the third thing is, are there any on-court deficiencies? Normally, if you just walk the courts, you can feel the court. Like if it's a depression, Wailea, we walked the courts before a state tournament, and one of the courts had like a depression in no man's land. Sakupan in Bangkok, these surface boxes are faster than the baseline. You don't know that when you play until you play because you hit baseline, the baseline is fine. It's when you hit a serve, the ball hits the service box and speeds up. Come into hit a half volley, the ball hits the court and speeds up. So these are things you want to look at. Does the court have a fence or netting? The bridge club has a fence that's made out of netting. So when I run into the netting, I put my hand through the net twice. It's not a fence, it's not a wire fence. So you gotta be aware of these things. Is there a teaching court? Different lines on the court. Do they mark it? Is there a teaching net? Netting is always a problem because you always want to make sure there's enough room next to the side on the court. Where does the audience sit on the court? Or is there no seating? Because when I play matches, sometimes the audience is right next to me along the fencing. And when you play, you want to try to make sure you don't focus on the audience. Walk path. One of my clubs has 4 courts in a row. To get to court 4, you walk behind court 1, 2, 3. During the tournament, sometimes people serve and they play while people are walking behind you. So you have to be aware of these things. So the best way to get used to playing at a different court is to first of all play there. But you want to work on 3 things. Work on the vision, look at the courts, see if there are any oddities or that you see right off the bat. What are the wind and weather patterns, sunlight, wind? And finally, are there any on-court deficiencies? These things will help you get used to a foreign court. But my suggestion, as always, go there one day early and play. Or at the very least, get there 1 hour before your match starts and just kind of get the feel of the court, talk to your friends, walk around. Don't show up like 5 minutes before your match and just jump in the court. Give yourself an opportunity to get acclimated to the area because different courts require different things, and a foreign court will affect your game. And I hope that helped you become a better tennis player. Professional tennis, White Tennis Pro.